Thank you for joining us for this Museum Midday, all about Ketchikan's Wearable Art Show. I'm glad that you could join us for this Facebook video premiere. So I'm sort of new to Ketchikan. I was able to volunteer and help with the last wearable, which was fun to see what it was all about. But one of the things, and one of the reasons we were really excited to talk with you guys, is when we look at our museum's collection and we look at what we're missing, a lot of that is some of these really great instances in which the community kind of really gathers together or is really creative. And I think Wearable is very much exemplified by both of those things. So we think, down the line, 50 years, 100 years, what do we have in our collection that would tell the story of Wearable? And we really don't have a lot. I think we might have a couple of photos. We don't have any objects, and we certainly don't have you all's perspective or oral histories. So that's something that we're really pushing, is to really kind of get these stories of how it is that we've come together and as a community in these different ways. So that's why I'm so super psyched that you guys are doing this panel for us here today, so we can really start that question of what do we need to collect so that down the line future generations can look back and say, oh, that was wearable year 1, or that was wearable year 50, those sort of things. So I'm so pleased. Victoria just joined us, so if you would like to, Kathleen, go ahead and if you can give us a brief description of the Wearable Art Show.
Description of the Wearable Art Show. I've been thinking a lot about this, and the one thing I keep coming back to is it's a really hard thing to describe. But at its base, the Wearable Art Show is a runway show with artists presenting artwork that they wear. In Ketchikan, it has become an iconic event over the years, and it's got 3 parts to it. It's got the actual artwork that the artists make and the performances of the models on the runway. And then the third part is the audience and the community. And I think that's every bit as big a part of the Wearable Art Show. And it makes for a full rounded experience for Ketchikan. It's really become something in Ketchikan that that we all come together for. And one of the special and one of my favorite things about the Wearable Art Show is it's accessible and anybody can participate at any level. And it's been something that the Wearable Art Show Committee, a committee of artists and volunteers, has been steadfast protectors of the ability for first-time wearable artists to participate. It's very important for them to make that possible and to support and showcase those first-time artists, whether they're adults or kids or classrooms or however that goes down. It's a really important part of the Wearable Art Show. I think you're still on mute, Erica Jane.
You have to have one in every meeting, right? No, that's a fantastic summary. I know so many of us, have seen the great kind of summary and a lot of the discussion that some of the same panelists here today had with the Ketchikan Story Project too, of kind of that idea of looking at Ketchikan and the arts and what's created here and seeing that through the lens of the Wearable Art Show. So that's such a great summary. We would love to hear from Victoria Lord. Can you discuss a little bit about how that Wearable Art Show originated?
I sure can. I was director of the Arts Council from 1986 to 1997. And yes, the wearables started on my watch. However, I was just the administrator behind it. I wasn't the creative force. Fortunately, during my tenure at the Arts Council, I had there were a lot of convergence of a lot of creativity and artists happening, and I was fortunate to have some people on my board at the time. And one of my board members suggested, she'd heard about this thing in New York City that they did, a wearable art show. And her name was Barbara Babcock. And I said, "Oh, New York City, yeah, we can do that. Ketchikan can do that. Why not?" So the first year, I think, was 1987. And at that time, we were sharing a space with First City Players, and there was a small 50-seat black box theater that a lot of you will remember if you were around during that era. And we had it in conjunction with the Winter Art Walk on a Sunday afternoon. So it started out in December, and people were actually created a lot of woven pieces. Uh, Felting was big at the time. There were a lot of fiber artists in town, so we actually had a lot of wearable things that you could walk out on the street in. And we set up a little shop in the gallery for as a little fundraiser, but we sold wearable art for Christmas. And so during the Winter Art Walk, that little store was open. But the show, which only sat 50 and somehow we packed 100 people in, became very popular. And so we upped it to 2 shows and a lot of different things. And then around 1991, I think, or 92, one of the artists, local artists, Leslie Morgan, came to me and said, "Victoria, this really belongs on a runway. And give it to me and let's take it up to the, I'll help you coordinate it. Let's take it up to the Civic Center." And so we enlisted a bunch of carpenters to build a very heavy wooden runway that took a lifetime to put together. And the first year, Leslie wanted themes. She's the one that originated the theme idea. So the first year, I think it was Art as Armor, and we had a drumming group at that time, and they drummed through the whole performance and never stopped with these models. And um, some of the highlights over of that year were Leslie did out of alder sticks an armor piece. Bridget Stearns out of Spam cans did Spamurai Warrior and was terrific. Holly Churchill wove a cedar bark kind of, I don't know, they were arm pieces, leggings, and then a skirt thing. And her teenage son modeled it, much to the delight of all the women in the audience. He was quite buff, and it was just fun. And and then it sort of took off from there, I think, and hit its stride and evolved into different things. I would like to mention, I forgot a couple of the earlier pieces. Ray Troll, for example, did a 2x4 vest out of yellow cedar that absolutely nobody could pick up because it weighed so much. So he had to model that. That was in the little black box. I can't remember her first name, but she was a Ratzat, and this is in 1987 or 88, maybe it was 89. She made a wedding dress, and to just tell you how finely crafted these pieces were, she made them out of pink and white garbage bags, and she scalloped all the edges and stitched all the edges, and it was very small wedding, beautiful wedding dress. And the only person who could model it was Kathy Bowling at the time, and she looked lovely. And yeah, so there were some fun things. There were fur-lined extra tufts. It was all very Ketchikan oriented. And I think that still is a main thread here, that we still look at our environment and express that environment. So yeah. So if anybody has any questions, I'm a fountain of information of history. So,
we'll take you up on it. So that was, one of the things when we were looking at getting you all together for this Museum Midday was exploring a little bit of the history of Wearable and kind of how it came about. So you guys have given us a wonderful primer of that between Kathleen Light, who's currently the executive director of the Ketchikan area's Arts and Humanities Council, and Victoria, you've given us a great account too of the start of Wearable under your tenure there. And we're also joined by a panel of artists. So can I get you guys to go ahead and just go right down through the line here and unmute yourself? And if you can let us know your name, let's do like the first year that you were introduced to Wearable, whether it was participating as an artist or someone in the audience, and why you do Wearable. So I'll go ahead and let you guys, can we start with Rhonda?
Hello. So I guess I've been thinking about this. The first time I was introduced to wearable arts was by my daughters. They went to Valley Park School, and they came home and asked if they could be in the Wearable Art Show. I had no idea what it was. And looking back, the things I made, it's kind of embarrassing because it was definitely not wearable art. But I've been pretty frequent, probably the last, I guess, maybe 10 years. I put all of my kids through the wearable art shows, myself included, their friends. I think it's probably, I wrote it down once, and I think I've had probably 33 different kids participate over the years. So it's always something that they look forward to. My whole family looks forward to it, actually. Usually have to get about 20 tickets for a show just because we have a huge family. And probably my favorite thing about wearable arts is just being around so many creative people. It's just crazy. You've got Lauren, Jackie, well, whoever else is on here. Just some amazing artists. And it's probably not up until the last few years that I actually, it clicked, okay, what is wearable art? Like I said, in the beginning, my stuff was not very good, but I guess I also enjoy, just hanging out, being just, I don't know, it's like a community. I just love everybody that's in the wearable art show. So.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like Rhonda kind of called you out there. Would you like to introduce yourself, Lauren? Oop, we've got you muted there. I'm glad I wasn't the only one this time.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
So, I am Lauren McCue, and I was also thinking about when I was introduced to wearable art, and I remember it was that Spamurai Warrior that just blew my socks off. That was the first year I'd seen wearable, and I'm like, what is this? This is amazing. I want to be a part of this. The next year I went home and have been a part of it ever since. And, and every year you adapt, you get better, you get bigger ideas. I think my favorite thing about the Wearable Art Show is that it's free form art. There is no rules, no book that you can look up on how to build this crazy idea you have in your head. You just kind of have to experiment. And there's a lot of trial and error, and there's a lot of things you have to start over and rip apart again. But in the end, it's all worth it. And I also have had all of my children involved. I have had 4 kids that we've put through the Wearable Art Show. And the youngest are now doing their own pieces all by themselves, and they amaze me. And I teach wearable art. So I actually have to go pretty soon because I have a class. I have 16 kids that are making crazy costumes. And being able to take my knowledge and share it with the community and the children and watch the younger generation of wearables build their skills and get better and better every year. I mean, that's what it's all about.
You're our last artist currently here on the panel, so if you can give us an introduction, that would be fantastic.
My kids have also modeled all of them since they were in 3rd grade, and they were talking about some of the costumes that they liked best. And for Gunnar, he remembers one that Carly Lesko, Lauren's daughter, did for the year of Feast Your Eyes, when she came down and she had a long train with the food on it. And he talks about that one all the time, as well as ones that spark. Some of them are just fun, but some of them have a real deeper meaning. And one year, Dawn Rawolf did one to honor her brother who was in the Gulf War, and it had oil cans on it, and she had a gas mask. And that's one that my kids still talk about a lot, that really set them off. My first learning about wearable art was as a high school teacher. I taught at K-High from early on, and Holly Knoyer's daughters, I taught them. And every year I made big Halloween costumes, and I would organize a costume contest at the school, and they would say, man, you should get in wearable art. But I could never get tickets. And finally, one year I saw a theme that I liked. It was 1998. And so I entered a costume. I'd never even been before. I built a costume and I went, had to stand at the back because I hadn't gotten tickets in time. And that was the Spamurai year. I saw that Spamurai warrior, and that really, I thought, oh man, that can be so crazy. You can use such bizarre things. I started saving Kikkoman cans in order to, I specifically wanted to make a woman for the samurai warrior, and ultimately made a costume out of those cans. So I think Holly's kids really got me into it. And I have done it every year since then, minus a couple. And like I said, my children have been in it every single year. The boys went from 3rd grade through seniors. They never wanted to miss a year. Becca missed a few years here and there, and a lot of their friends. I think one of the best parts was those kids growing up together. You know, there's so many models that are my kids' age that did it every single year. Max and Gunnar and her name will come to me in a second, used to sit under the tables while they were waiting and eat Mentos, you know, and just I had to always buy Mentos for them. Becca and all the girls that were her age that modeled Mari Freitag and just lots of kids. They would run over after their pieces were done. They would go to Cape Fox and they would have a quick dessert and then come back in time for the finale. So, I mean, they were just kind of traditions amongst the children that have grown up then to become their own, you know, wearable artists as well. It's just a good family time.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's an excellent introduction to each of you ladies here involved. So I've got you all unmuted. I'd like you guys to just be able to have a discussion here. So you're already sort of doing that. But I would love to know, it's been pointed out to me, and some of you already mentioned the sense of community that builds up around our wearable. Our wearable isn't competitive in like there isn't a winner. I know a lot of other, wearable art shows, there's like the first place winner and second place and all of that. So how do you think, can you guys talk a little bit to that camaraderie that develops around wearable?
We fought very hard not to have it be judged. We want everybody, that's the inclusive, however you say that word, inclusivity thing, but we thought that judging it would make it a competition and take away from the beauty of it. So we really have fought all these years to keep it art for art's sake.
And
Yeah, I agree.
I was going to say, I think part of the camaraderie is set in place by the Wearable Art Show Committee. And it's a committee of wearable artists, and they protect that camaraderie, and they protect the ability for the artists to continue to create and be a group and move forward. The committee's really cool in the way that it protects Ketchikan's Wearable Art Show, I think. I don't know what it happens that all 3 of the artists you have on here are on the committee. So I would be interested to know if you guys think that as well.
Yeah, I love that it's not judged. It's more of a competition against myself. You know, what can I do this year, you know, that's creative and different? And I don't know. Yeah, I think if it was judged, it would ruin it for me.
Well, I think if it was judged, it would also discourage a lot of first timers. You know, people, there is a real broad range of the art that you will see there as far as maybe craftsmanship if you get up close, but as far as just the pizzazz from the audience viewpoint, it's all awesome. And there are people that just wouldn't do it if they thought that there was going to be a judging, you know.
No, that's a
Yeah, it would change the
fantastic point.
dynamics.
Right, it would change the dynamics. I think it helps too that the artists are willing to help other people. There's the meetings that we have for all artists who can come and ask questions. And I haven't participated in a long time, but I had in the past where, you know, established artists will show up and anybody else can come that's thinking of making a piece that has questions on how do I do this or what's it like up there. And, you know, so that helps with the inclusivity.
You're right. It's the open sharing of knowledge and skill. We're willing to help anybody.
So I've heard it placed out there that if you're a wearable artist or you know a wearable artist, you will never run into any problems as far as learning what glue to use to glue this to that. So there's some laughter there.
Oh yeah, we are adhesive experts.
Along those lines, as far as, you know, using adhesives and things, I would love to have you all weigh in. A lot of you mentioned the Spam-A-Lot cans, but can you talk about some of the most unusual material you've used or you've seen other people use that you want to spotlight for us?
I made a costume out of hangers, and that was a challenge. Metal hanger, wire hangers.
I love that one. That was so cool.
I love the one out of rope too, the rope that was unraveled. That was
right, the rope, right. Or Jackie, you're the queen of material. You use the craziest things.
Yeah, I generally try to use something different to rather than make a costume and just glue bottle tops on it. I would want to make it entirely out of bottle tops. So I've done chainmail that I created from welding rod. I made one out of nothing but dog food bags, one out of nothing but tin cans. Right now I've got sails that I've managed to dye that I'm using. Yeah, a lot of stuff. Well, I guess the weirdest one, if you ask my oldest daughter or my daughter who graduated in 2008, was the dead fish, the fish dress. I had my husband and his buddy Elmo collect every silver they caught that autumn. They skinned and brought me the skins, and then I walked around Ward Lake and I collected all the dead fish spines. And had to boil them. I tried to make them not stinky, so I boiled them in mint oil and something else, and then I tanned them and made that costume. And Becca said, smelled like dead fish and mint. It was pretty awful, but it looked good.
We had, there was one with kombucha. Is that SCOBY? It's SCOBY. SCOBY.
Right.
Oh, that was
a good one. I don't remember who made that, but she dried the SCOBYs and
yeah.
I've got enough SCOBYs to make one right now if anybody's interested. I'm not.
No, that's fantastic. And we really, you know, one of those things that we always see here in Ketchikan too is folks, they make do and they create what they need to, you know, whatever there's missing out on, they, you know, you mentioned like, you know, making the chainmail or repurposing sails or doing that. I think it's fantastic that it's not just, you know, material that you ship in, it's things that are found here on the rock. And to that end, I would love to know, why do people gather? Why do you think Wearable is a wintertime activity for Ketchikan? So why is it then that people are gathering together? Can you guys just talk a little bit to that time of year and that creative spirit that kind of infuses us over the winter months?
Well, cabin fever.
I can start. When we decided to move it to February, there was an activity called Festival of the North. And the idea of Festival of the North was that all the arts groups in Ketchikan would do something and it would beat the winter blues, was the whole concept around February's that kind of that month. And so we still have things going on in February that are part of that. And that's when we moved Wearable to the first weekend of February to kick off Festival of the North. And it
That's
seemed
interesting.
like a very creative time. January is kind of a lull time, so it gave people a chance to create and then show it off and get people together. And it was a place it really was meant to be an adult show. I know that we had a lot of educators at the beginning that sparked kids into doing it, and that's why we had a Saturday show bringing in the kids' creativity. And so it was a place where, like in the summer, Blueberry Festival brings you together, where Wearable in the winter brings the community together, and people see each other maybe they haven't seen. So it was fun. Good thing we're on an
Well said.
island.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, would you like to add a little bit to that, Rhonda?
Oh, well, for me, I'm happy it's in the winter because, it's so dark and dreary, and it usually gives me something to do to get me through those dark times. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, those are all good points. Yes, Jackie, can you weigh in?
I think it's a perfect gap time, because if it was any earlier, if it was still in December, there's too much Christmas stuff. Thanksgiving just happened. People are busy. You're doing other things, creating other things. And then if it was much later, summertime, people are busy going out and fishing and playing in the beach or gearing up earlier in spring for the tourist season, because that's just grown and grown and grown. So everybody seems to be involved in tourist season, and February is just a perfect time. You've had time, you're going a little bit cabin fever, stir crazy. It gives you, something to occupy yourself with, and fills a time when you are available to work and then you want to get out with other people a bit.
So one of the jokes, or one of the prevailing things that has been discussed, imparted to me, fun stories, is you can tell when artists who are going to participate in Wearable, when they're working on their material, like their homes start to look kind of crazy. Can any of you all speak to that? Those anecdotal stories of what Wearable has done to your home?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm in my art room right now. Well, it's actually become a storage, and I have more art supplies than Walmart does. So my room in here is so crowded that I actually have to move everything out in my garage to work on it, and what a mess. I have stuff everywhere.
It's crazy. I'm lucky my husband put up with me for all these years. The house just gets wiped out. Every room, everything.
Yeah, every surface. I have an art room too, but I can't work there. I always want to be down in the living room in the midst of everybody else. And even now that there is no everybody else, there's just me. I still have to come downstairs. I'm on the kitchen table. I've got stuff over every surface in the living room and kitchen. And
yes.
I also have very tolerant family members.
I like the fact that the people at Madison, they know when people are starting to work on their wearable pieces, because artists come in and ask for the weirdest things. And Madison, those guys are awesome and can find anything and solve so many problems. That part is funny to me too.
Yeah, and they always know when you come in, oh, you must be working on wearable arts.
Yep, 'tis the season.
Oh, well, you ladies are a hoot here. So as someone who's been in the audience or helped, volunteer with you all, I would love it if we could push you guys for any interesting or crazy or just fun backstage shenanigans. Can you share any backstage or what it's like opening night for Wearable? Kathleen, can we start with you? Because I know a lot goes into preparing for Wearable.
Yeah. Well, I think I want to tell you about my first Wearable. And when I arrived in town in August, I had no idea what Wearable was. And I've never seen it before. I had no idea. I'm a musician. And so this concept was foreign to me. And the Wearable Committee kept telling me it'll be okay, it'll be fine, no, don't worry, this is going to be fine. And I and the staff at the time, all three of us had just started, the brand new staff. There was no previous staff there, so none of us knew what Wearable was, and the committee was very confident. They had no worries, and they basically taught us how to make Wearable. And we got to Wearable, the day of Wearable, and you load in on Tuesday, and you have a dress rehearsal. I believe we were still on that cycle. Dress rehearsal on Wednesday, and then the first performance is on Thursday. So we loaded in on Tuesday, and the committee was awesome. They told us how to do it, and we got to Wednesday, and the staff, we had no idea. And people are going down the runway with half pieces, with no pieces. They were sort of getting all the way to the end of the runway. They were working backstage on their pieces. They were, I thought, oh my God, I've broken this amazing event for Ketchikan, and it's not going to happen. It's all going to fall apart. And then didn't sleep. We got to Thursday, the performance, and these artists, this amazing transformation of suddenly their pieces were done. They are these awesome performances going down the runway. There's this joyous feeling backstage. Everybody's excited and happy to see each other and perform. And the sense of love and appreciation for each other was so amazing. So it was this backstage is a whole nother world than what you see out front, and it's pretty amazing back there. They're a bunch of jokesters too. They play pranks on each other. They tease each other. It's pretty fun backstage.
Jackie, can we push you for a crazy backstage story?
I don't know if I've got crazy backstage stories. I do know that the safety rules have tightened up a bit, because that very first one that I went to that I was talking about, as I was backstage getting my girls ready, Victoria, you were modeling for Holly that year. You had some kind of green confection on, and she was hot gluing your headpiece at that moment, like creating it at the very last minute. And yours was the craziest. And I remember you saying that you just love being the last one for Holly, because she is on such a time constraint that she throws everything into it, and it just comes out wild and crazy at the last minute. So there is a lot of last minute stuff going on, but we have sort of banned the glue guns and the hot items. That has to be done before you show up.
It blows the breakers of the building. Yeah. So
can I talk about
small fire
craziest?
too, maybe?
Let me talk about my craziest.
Something on Jackie's, what Jackie said. Holly was glue gunning me into this island. I was an island. I was a tropical island, and I still have the scar on my chest where she hot glued something up.
Already painful.
Lauren, did you have one for us?
Yes, I do. So I want to talk about Holly, because Holly is amazing in the fact that she runs a fix-it shop backstage. She brings her entire studio backstage and builds as she goes. So her costumes are vastly different from the first day to the last day. And she just keeps building the entire time as models are going on the stage. I mean,
that was half of the joy for me, is watching her pieces grow and materialize. I mean, she is amazing. And the year that we were standing there and her glue gun caught on fire, that was the big one for me. That was the "there will be no more glue guns" backstage. You don't really believe that a glue gun can catch on fire until it does. We're like, oh my God, this is for real.
Oh,
Maybe
that
we
is
don't need that one.
fantastic. We can see why the rules developed how they did. No, I thank you for sharing some of those crazy anecdotes. You all have been involved with Wearable, as committee members, as artists, as those who are, helping to facilitate and run for many, many years here. We're coming up on the 35th annual. Is that correct, Kathleen?
That's right.
Can we go right down the line and just, if you guys have some thoughts on why it is that Wearable has become such an enduring creative legacy here in Ketchikan? Can we start with Victoria, since you were there for the first, day one?
Well, I think that this community of artists, and I give the artists credit for moving this whole shebang forward. I think it gave them a stage to maybe do something outside of their normal genre that they work in, or medium that they work in, and to do something totally different and off the wall. And I really appreciate, and I don't think people get how much time you guys put into creating these things. And I think that the audience, when they get there and they see this incredible show, it builds up in them too, and they support this fabulous creativity. So I really credit the artists for moving this whole thing into whatever direction it ends up going. And so thank you all for participating, and those that aren't participating on this particular call, and there are lots of them out there. They're great. And at the beginning, a lot of educators, like I said, got involved too. And most of you talked about your children coming home and talking about Wearable. So I think we started grooming them young, and they kept going. And you have somebody like Diane Palmer who's done it every single year. And so there's a consistency and new creativity, and it's great. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. Jackie, can you tell us a little bit, do you have any thoughts on that enduring legacy? Why does Wearable work year after year?
I think it's a lot what Victoria said also, and it's just the fantasy, the artists. I think for me, I used to, the new theme is always presented at the last night. And I would hear that theme, and for a long time, instantly, I would have an idea of what I wanted. And just being able to develop that fantasy that you have and seeing if you can actually get that going, I think that's what keeps artists coming back. But for the townspeople, I think they also get involved in that fantasy. You come and you just see it's just such a visual feast, crazy costumes and lighting and just very interesting movement. And I think people love to see that. It really takes you out of the dark winter, and it sparks joy, as the saying goes these days.
No, and does anyone else have anything they'd like to add as far as that enduring legacy? Rhonda or Lauren? A lot of you talked about, just the fact that you're getting more folks involved, your family members and students. And I know in looking at or watching Wearable last year, you see a lot of young up and coming artists or young dancers who are getting involved as models. So those are all, so many fantastic things that just make Wearable happen year after year. So I think it would be wonderful to kind of come full circle with this. And if we can go to Kathleen, Kathleen, can you talk a little bit about why and how wearable is going to be different this year in 2021?
Yeah, I think the why is pretty obvious. We have this darn pandemic going on right now, and so we were unable to have wearable in February just because we can't gather. And the committee, our conversations were around providing the opportunity for artists, still providing the opportunity for artists to create, and also providing the community the opportunity to have a little bit of public art and to see our artists, and that sense of pride that Wearable instills in the people in Ketchikan. And I think the committee was really adamant that it still happen in some format. And I won't lie, we have a lot of trepidation about how we're moving forward, and can it happen? Will it work? And so we're going for it. Our plan is to have several small events in limited capacity in April. And we have a small group of artists who are committed to building wearable art show pieces, and they will be performing in some these small performances around the community. So in addition to that, just in case we can't have those performances in April, we're also filming those artists this year. And we've forged a really awesome partnership with KPU and the Mill at Ward Cove to film our wearable artists that are participating this year. And we've done a little bit of filming out there already. And the space itself is spectacular. It's epic. It's a giant warehouse. Lots of you have probably been there. It's a giant warehouse. It's lots of gorgeous brick, old rusted metal, sort of blown out warehouse look. So it gives a great palette for wearable art pieces to be exhibited on film. So we're going to be filming the pieces here in the middle of February. And KPU is going to put together a film for us, and that we'll also be able to show in at the same time as the performances in April. And like I said, the Wearable Committee really wanted to still provide this opportunity, both for artists and for the community, to experience Wearable, just to keep it alive. Ketchikan, we're pretty proud about Wearable, and so we just didn't want to give it up. So that's the big plan. And like I said, we're excited about it, and we're anxious about it, and we're moving forward.
Fantastic. And Lauren, I see you running around with glue guns right now. Oh, and yeah, we don't have your audio, but I know that you've got somewhere to be at the top of the hour, so I totally understand. Oops.
Yeah, I have students showing up probably now.
Oop. Well, we lost your audio again. There you go.
Okay, we are the original wearable art city. We were before the world of wearable art, before everything else. Ketchikan and Victoria and whoever created it, they were OG.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic. Kathleen, we're so excited that Wearable is going to be happening this year. And I want to thank you and of course, the committee members there that have kind of helped make it happen. Does anyone have any, last shout outs here as far as, I know I mentioned at the start of this Museum Midday that one of the reasons we're excited to have you all here is for us as a museum, we like to make certain that the collection at the museum reflects our community. And part of that is collecting stories and photos and artifacts that have to do with some of these really impactful community events like Wearable. So if you could say, like, what is an object or what is a thing that you think encapsulates Wearable, that if you came into the Ketchikan museums, you'd be like, that tells us the story of Wearable. Can you give us any feedback on where we should be going with that?
I'm more of a traditionalist, I really am into things that I can actually wear. So I go back to some of these. I can remember, I would really like to see Diane Palmer's piece. It was still when we were in the main street. She and Leslie Morgan did these transformer pieces where they created outfits that looked like business, and they did their shoes and everything. And then when they unzipped, they had party dresses on. I mean, it's hard to explain unless you saw it. And I wish somebody out there, maybe Diane has photos of that. It would be really phenomenal. And their piece was called Transformers. And it was just fun. And it was kind of the beginning. And I do like the wild and crazy too. I really appreciate Jackie and Lauren and their well-crafted pieces. Their attention to detail, and Lauren's children are following that. And I think it's their leading by example, and Rhonda's the same. Her pieces are so well articulated and put together. I think it's really valuable to have artists, young artists, see the not old artists, mature people have been involved for a while, and how their pieces have evolved, and how important it is to have something. I know we all laugh about the glue guns, but to have something structurally sound is lovely, and is raises the bar a bit. And I really appreciate the artists that are involved on this call, and the work you do and the example you set. So that didn't answer your question, did it?
No, it totally did. It totally did. And we're so, again, pleased that you all were able to join us today for this Museum Midday. And I know that there are only the 5 of you here, on the call. But we hope that we're able to talk with so many more of the artists and people who've been, involved. Thank you all for being part of this. I can't wait to see what you all create and what you do. And hopefully we'll hear some more of those stories, or we'll get some of those photos. So I hope that you'll think about that lasting history as we help to record Ketchikan's community history, and the fact that Wearable, you all are very much a colorful part of that. So thank you all again for coming out to this Museum Midday and letting us ask you some questions, and having you share some of these colorful anecdotes with us. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this Facebook video premiere for Museum Middays, all about Ketchikan's Wearable Art Show. For next month's Museum Midday, Museum Middays are always the first Thursday of the month. So March 4th at noon, we will be hosting a Museum Midday called Captured in Time, all about Ketchikan Daily News' photojournalists, both present and past. We'll have a panel of 3 presenters from Ketchikan Daily News, both past and present, and they'll be discussing how images tell stories and create a photographic record of our recorded and collective history.